What is up? This is your chronically Caucasian vocal analyst, and today we're looking at some Beyonce. That's an image. Very strong image. I love this. She releases the track with no video, then re-releases the track with a music video. And the music video is of incredible quality, of course, because of the budget, but also Beyonce is extremely aware of the image. You can see when she does when she talks about some of the touring, she's very aware of every element of the entertainment. Look at this strong image that even the tinsels on the finger help create. And it does remind me, I believe she said that this is a throwback to house and the gay community. And so these movements are very Vogue-esque, right? This is a position you would see in Vogue. And the reason I know that is because I watched a lot of Vogue in Philly, and it's incredible what people can do. It's a very much its own thing. It's super athletic, super expressive with all the motions of the limbs. It's amazing. Right? The face shaping and highlighting with the hands, very Vogue. Man, this is just an incredible throwback to house. Wow. Man, you know it's good when the whitest person on the internet can move his hips to something, and you didn't see that because it only moves like a couple of millimeters. It's very, very tight and restricted. My hips, I don't usually listen to music in my spare time because I don't ever casually listen to music, which I don't mind. It gets me, it's a dopamine hit. I really, really like to focus on the minutia, but this is just a bop. And I heard this before I recorded this, and it's just so satisfying. Ah. Yes, listen to that rhythm, the rhythmic decisions. Yeah. Little stuff like that is what separates good singing from great singing. There's a musical element to this. Every phrase is so specific and special. And what's great is that because this is a reference to house music, listen to how she's treating the consonants. Right? On the S's and the B's, we get a lot of emphasis, a lot of punch. And the same, she's using the N to the same degree as to put a little bit more emphasis on it, but technically it's accomplished very differently than B. Or what she's doing with the N in order to give it a little bit more of a punch, similar to what the other consonants were, is she's quickly tilting and untilting her thyroid cartilage. And that is a very, very good way to take a vowel or some consonant that comes out very smoothly. I guess you nasal continuant for the nerds, speech nerds out there. N's and M's don't have a punch of their own. In fact, they lower the volume because they're blocking the sound. So by adding that quick tilt and untilt, you're adding expression in terms of the initiation of the note. Shameless plug time. If you watch my other video on Plastic Off of the Sofa, where I go over different singers, you can actually get a little bit more of a detailed breakdown about how that is accomplished. Nice. Very, very different ways to handle. First we have the consonants. Now she's playing with the vowels, right? That growl. I don't practice that at all. Body. I can only do it like within a certain consonant. Loud to me, and the tone color sounds like a bad impression of Louis Armstrong, right? I see skies. Yeah, the reason why, fun fact, the reason why growls can sound like they're swallowed a little bit is because of how they're accomplished. It's very similar to Mongolian throat singing. It just goes a little bit lower. What's happening is that the root of the tongue goes down, and so the epiglottis, let's get a video. So this is hard to see because video MRIs do a really bad job of they just have such a low resolution because of how taxing it is to get the MRI information to begin with. But this is the base of the tongue, this is the root, and the epiglottis is right here, very close to the root of the tongue. This is the thing when you swallow versus when you breathe. The epiglottis is the cartilage that makes sure you don't choke and die. So very important thing. You can lower it down and then be close enough to the arytenoid cartilage and the false folds, basically durable parts of the voice, and they can just rattle onto the epiglottis, and that is how Mongolian throat singing works, and how like lie to me, right? So, but what's interesting about this is that someone who's really good at growls tend not to have that swallowed sound. Now, that's really interesting to me and very challenging to accomplish, because when you lower the epiglottis back using the root of the tongue, inherently your tongue is going back. And so the only way to not get a very swallowed sound, I had to fix something. So the only way to get a not swallowed sound when you growl or you do Mongolian throat bass is to have really excellent posture so that the soft palate is lifted and you don't need to bring the tongue as far. Wow. So that's a really interesting decision from an audio perspective. Listen to how much reverb and airy this first part is. Right, and this is just as forward in the mix as can possibly be. This tune is like all over the place, and it's whole lot of people that outside, worldwide hoodie with the mask outside, in case you forgot how we act. Very, very different. So traditionally, when you go and want to in rap, when you want to give emphasis to a word, you just give a lot of layers, multiple takes of saying that exact word, and that's dynamic and interesting enough. But she's doing it differently every time. She's panning it. She's making it very soft. She's making it very heavy. I mean, it's really interesting. You said you outside, but you ain't there. Right? That's all on the left. You might not be able to hear it in my video, but that's all to the right. You might not be able to hear it in my video, but if you go to the 1 minute 50-second mark and play it for a little bit, you'll hear the dynamics of which sound is going in, panning into which ear. But you ain't that outside. Worldwide hoodie with the mask outside, in case you forgot. Like, and that has a little ping pong delay. Worldwide hoodie with the mask outside, in case you forgot. Yeah, like it just you can hear it a little bit here, and then it swings. I mean, it's super, super dynamic, and this goes back to the thing that I praise about excellent singers is the fact that nothing is ever the same. They give so much specificity to all of the phrasing and the musical elements, and it's just, I mean, it's mind-boggling. Like, maybe makes me feel lazy. I'm glad my ego's not wrapped up in this, because I would feel terrible about myself with how good this is. Wow. Again, this goes back to very different overdubs. Right? Very, very front of the mix. Kind of like a little bit more of the overdubs of the current times. So yeah, these overdubs are very, very, very forward in the mix. And then immediately here, this is a chorus effect that's pushed back a little bit by reverb and a lowering of the volume. right? Very different dynamics, and that makes it interesting. It's really, really cool. Now, the slap thing has a delay on either ear. Amazing. One of the things that you can do as a recording artist, if you're recording a lot of vocals, is you can boost right around 10K kilohertz, and that's what adds what's called air. It's not a very technical term, but it gives that kind of sizzle to the voice. Well, you can do that. It is not generally done with every overdub because it can get a little harsh, but she's doing it a little bit on each one. And then here's the crazy part. The reverb has been tuned to higher frequencies to allow for a little bit more body to the sound, which is what reverb can generally supply, but it keeps it in the front of the mix by not washing the low end with a bunch of reverb. Ooh, it's just all over the place. These wonderful dubs, they're high, they're low. It sounds like they took her vocal, one of two things. They took her vocals, pitched them down, and then used a harmonizer, or they took some male vocals and give the male vocals a harmonizer. That sort of like crazy tight sound from this is very indicative of a harmonizer. And for some reason, when I bring harmonizers up, I get a little bit of blowback in the comments, and they're like, they didn't use a harmonizer, they didn't cheat. A harmonizer has its own sound that you will not, maybe you could get it with natural recording and overdubbing, but why? It'll take so much longer, and harmonizers aren't exactly expensive. I even think there's some free ones out there that do a good job. So this, for all intents and purposes, would be a harmonizer. Oh my God. Listen to how the male voice, very far in the back of the mix, is still extremely audible. Nice, nice. A cutting off of that bass note, very hype. Dang, I can't tell if that's a children's choir, and then some instances I wonder if it's a gospel choir, and the way that just the space is made for these things. Yeah, see what I'm saying? Right there. Heavy on the verb, but really thick on the chorus. Oh my goodness, that's a nugget right there. That's precious. She is doing right, little hums on the lower notes, and that's great. She has on the high end, what's being occupied there is the vocals. Right here, right here. Right? So even though the higher vocals are kind of washed in reverb, the fact that she's doing and all these very closed off mouth sounds that make they block the sound, right? But they still deliver that low end. And because they deliver that low end, it makes it super easy to blend with these higher singing notes, even though reverb tends to get rid of that high air sound, unless you specifically go for that. It's just really good arranging. There's mixing and there is arranging. And arranging is all over the place here in a great, great way. And no amount of mixing can solve a bad arrangement. So the arrangement comes first, and this is marvelous. I love the way that these delays are working. It's just so subtle. Yeah, you hear that? You hear that? Da-da-da-da-da, all over this with the delay. And then the delay gets reverbed, which is like just 200 IQ, right? The delay, so the difference between a delay and reverb is how we perceive the time of the echo. If you have a delay, anything above 50 milliseconds in terms of the repeat is heard as a delay, which is da, 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 right? But when you get below 50 milliseconds, it is interpreted as reverb, which is like if I just went in the bathroom and said something, that would be reverb. And by the way, yes, it is that specific and universal across human beings. Don't believe me? Get in a DAW and do it yourself. Because when my teacher said it in audio recording classes, I was like, bull. It's too specific. Really, milliseconds? And then he did it, and I was like, oh my God, that's real. It's so cool. It's so cool. Nice. We get a kids choir. We get the harshness of like a growly male voice. We get a harmonizer, and now we have a gospel chorus. Ooh, really hard to hear. But in the back here, she's doing an ooh vowel that she's like made a little steely with some sort of plate verb. So subtle. She's just so amazing with details. Little details like this. She's just so darn good. Excellent. Just always interesting, always a little something different with these musical ideas. It's an incredible track. Highly recommend putting it on repeat. Make a playlist that's 8 tracks long, and it's just Break My Soul. Really